In praise of jokes. Jokes, anecdotes, funny stories, they are the best evidence the sharp sense of the real and an imagination that ventures into the implausible can make a perfect pairing. Rabelais' Panurge does not know any woman he would care to wed. Yet, being of a logical, theoretical, systematic, foresighted turn of mind, he decides to settle immediately, once and for all, the fundamental question of his life. Should a man marry or not? He hurries from one expert to another, from a philosopher to a lawyer, from a clairvoyant to an astrologer, from a poet to a theologian, and after very lengthy investigations, he arrives at the certainty that there is no answer to this greatest of all questions. The whole third book recounts nothing but this implausible activity, this joke which turns into a long farcical tour of all the knowledge of Rabelais' time, which reminds me that 300 years later, Bouvard and Pécuchet is also an extended joke that surveys the knowledge of a whole period. Cervantes wrote the second part of Don Quixote when the first had already been published and known for several years. That suggested a splendid idea to him. The characters Don Quixote meets along his way recognize him as the living hero of the book they have read. They discuss his past adventures with him and give him the opportunity to comment on his own literary image. Well, that's just not possible. It's straight fantasy, a joke. Then an unexpected event shakes Cervantes. Another writer, a stranger, anticipates him by publishing his own sequel to the adventures of Don Quixote. In his second part, which he is in the process of writing, the enraged Cervantes attacks the man with ferocious insults. But he also makes prompt use of this ugly incident to create a further fantasy. After all their misadventures, Don Quixote and Sancho, exhausted and gloomy, are already on the way back to their village when they meet a certain Don Alvaro, a character from The Accursed Plagiarism. Alvaro is astounded to hear their names, for he is a close friend of an entirely different Don Quixote and an entirely different Sancho. The meeting takes place just a few pages before the end of the novel. The characters' unsettling encounter with their own specters, the ultimate proof of the falseness of all things, the melancholy moonglow of the final joke, the farewell joke. In Gombrowicz' Ferdy-Duke, Professor Pimco decides to turn Joey, a 30-year-old man, into a boy of 17 and force him to spend his days on a high school bench, a student like all the rest. The burlesque situation conceals a question that is actually quite profound. Will an adult systematically treated as an adolescent eventually lose the sense of his true age? More generally, will the man become what others see and treat him as, or will he muster the strength, despite everything and everyone, to salvage his identity? Basing a novel on an anecdote, on a joke, must have seemed to Gombrowicz' readers a modernist's provocation. And they would be right, it was. However, it had very old roots. At the time when the art of the novel was not yet sure of its identity or its name, Fielding called it, quote, prosai, comi, epic writing, end of quote. It should be kept always in mind. The comic was one of the three mythical fairies leaning over the cradle of the newborn novel.